Thank you guys for joining us on another episode of the podcast for exceptional people, where we hope to jump into conversations, all things education, past, present, and future. Joining our conversation today is Nicole Greene, who's going to be also joining Cara and I in Baltimore at the CEC conference in mid-March. Nicole, welcome. Why don't you start by telling us just a bit about yourself and what you're bringing to Baltimore?
Awesome. First, Cara, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. One, because I love teaching, and two, because I love unconditional positive regard. So I'm so excited to talk about it with you all. My name is Nicole Green. I am a very proud National Board Certified teacher. I am a special education teacher. I teach sixth grade currently. I teach both integrated co-teaching or inclusion classes, and I also teach self-contained classes. And I am also a very proud member of the neurodivergent community. I have ADHD and OCD, and I think it's so important that we celebrate neurodiversity. What else? I am on the board for for New York State CEC, and I am a very proud member of the diversity committee for the national CEC. And I'm very grateful that they are committed to continuing that work this year.
That's awesome. We are very fortunate to have you today. This is going to be a really, really great conversation. So we have a couple of questions for you, and then something fun that we'll get into at the end. But feel free to share anything and everything because, like I said, we're excited to bring what you're bringing to Baltimore to the people a little bit beforehand, and hopefully drum up some interest and some conversation.
Super exciting.
So, what originally sparked your interest in what you're bringing to Baltimore?
Okay, so raise your hand if you know the Cult of Pedagogy podcast. Okay, I am obsessed with Jennifer Gonzalez. I think she is amazing. But she actually hosted Alex Chevron Vanette on an episode. It's called Nothing's Going to Change My Mind. It's episode 214. And when I first heard the words unconditional positive regard, I was like, this is it. This is what I do. And I didn't even know it has a name, or at least so I thought, right? But I realized it's an actual pedagogical approach. And like all podcasts and sort of webinars and things. I took some stuff with me. I clocked the name of her book, and then life continued to happen. The thing is, it's what I thought that I did, but true unconditional positive regard is really complex. And it's not as simple as like, yeah, of course, I just love all my students. I think they're great. But I have always sort of connected really easily with kids, and I just kind of been relying on that. And I realized that the kids I connected easily with, I probably did have some unconditional positive regard with them. I had really deep, authentic connections. But I think I was unintentionally sort of leaving kids out, the kids that I hadn't had that like automatic click with. So I will totally sell myself out on this or embarrass myself. But at the end of last year, a few of my students actually decided they were going to like host a little coup. And a couple of them just decided that they were all done working. They came into class. They just refused to do work, but not like, that wasn't disrespectful, but they just like sort of closed their workbooks and, just kind of ignored me. And I was like, oh, wow, we're like having a coup right now. Like, wow, okay. So I talked to the students, I talked to their parents. We all kind of, it was squashed within 24 hours. But I realized the students that I had this really deep connection with, like they came into school the next day. Hey, Miss Green, what's up? Like when I told them, hey, we're not going to give this any energy and I'm never going to think about it again. The kids who I had that deep connection with, they believed me and they were, like they came back, hey, Miss Green, what's up? Like came back to work. But the kids that I hadn't had that really deep relationship with, the kids that I maybe, it was more surface level or more like teacher student, like role, not that you should confuse those, but just like that it was more traditional. They struggled. They were disconnected for the rest of the year, I would say. There was a disengagement and the relationship had just kind of
Yeah.
like came undone. So when I saw that happen, I said, pull it out. And so I bought Alex Vanette's book, Equity Centered Trauma Informed Education. I jumped in, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, we say all the time in the early childhood ed world, connect before you expect. And that's exactly what you just demonstrated for us because those connection points happen before the moment of challenge. And
Yeah.
in the moment of challenge is when you know if that student trusts you to see them to the other side or not.
Yeah.
Ooh, Nicole, that's
She says
amazing.
it. She says it in her book too, that like schools expect you, she meaning Alex Vanette. She says in the book, schools expect, everyone says relationships, relationships, relationships. But no schools really give you a framework on how to do that, right? It's kind of just up to you to figure it out. And like you do your best, but there are so many demands on a teacher's energy and engagement. And all, our day is just boom, boom, boom. And like you think you're meeting those kids. I really believed in my heart that I had unconditional positive regard for all of my students, but it was in that moment of like epic failure that I was like, oh no. So yeah, I dived in, dived. Dove.
Doved.
So
Doved.
you've actually,
It's
you've
actually
actually,
D-O-V-E-D, doved.
what's really fascinating is you've actually half answered our second question.
Okay, well,
Because we wanted to know what was one thing that confirmed for you along the way that this was your journey, and then one thing you've learned along the way that was new and maybe a little surprising for you.
yeah. So I would say that the thing that was confirmed for me, like I knew that I needed something that would be more like just like a more pedagogical method for connecting with students, so that I wasn't just relying on my instincts, my natural abilities, but like really following an approach that's research backed and that works, and that would help me reach all of my students. And so I think, I went in thinking this is going to transform my relationships with my students, and it did. I think what surprised me, or like the newest like learning for it, was how much it actually also transformed my relationships with their caregivers. Similarly, I think for the most part, I've been very collaborative, and that's very much my approach. And I don't believe in problem dumping on parents, right? I was the kid whose parents got problem dumped on every day in school, so I know what that's like. And that's starting to be my own experience as a mom, unfortunately. But I think that was never my approach, and I still had so much room to grow. And I realized that when you really believe and like unconditional positive regard, I think everyone, when they start, they're like, yeah, I do that. And then they're like, oh, wait, but that, right? And as you dive deeper into your learning, you really grow so much. But what I realized is when you really embody unconditional positive regard, you start to have that for all humans. As I'm saying that out loud, I'm thinking, wow, I probably don't have that for my husband. I swear I'm working on it. But I believe that it really changes the way you engage with humanity. And I believe that I now have more of that with my students' parents. Plus, when you have deeper connections with their kids, they're more on your side, right? When we're collaborating more regularly, they're more on your side. So I would say that it has been, yeah, the biggest learning is just like it really changed the way that I engage with caregivers. And that's been so wonderful, I think, too, because when you're not in lockstep with caregivers, I think in all parts of education, but definitely in my work in special education, like if we're not on the same team, it is going to be a hard year, right? We are trying to move the needle forward, and we have to be in lockstep to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, special education is a field, well, all of our fields should be, where it's daily active work. One thing that you've said a couple of times, in a sentiment that really strikes to me, and I love hearing you say it, is it's what you thought you were doing. But
Mhm.
as you kind of became more deliberate in learning about it and realized that it was actually very much, more nuanced and more deliberate, and
Yeah.
there's evidence behind it. I love that idea of curiosity, and that you, as a teacher, stayed curious about what you thought you were doing versus, wait, I can hone this down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think curiosity is actually a really key component to unconditional positive regard. A lot of it is so like, I think a lot of teachers, like as you dive deeper into things like ABA and behavior management, you look at things like the function of the behavior, right? And then I think earlier in my teaching career, I would hear a lot of like, is it a can't or is it a won't? And I think that's a great starting place, right? We want to ask ourselves, is this actually something the kid can't do? Or like, and then that how we navigate or problem solve that is related to that. But in the book, Alex Vanette says, well, how would you approach it, or how would you treat it you knew it wasn't a choice, right? Like, so what if we just assumed best intentions of our students all the time? What if we should never assume that, we know whether it's a can't or a won't, right? That's kind of giving us a little too much, I don't know. It's giving a little too much of like, we don't really know what's inside our students' brains. And if we treat them as it was a mistake rather than something that was intentional, hurtful, right? It removes a lot of the like taking things personally with your students. And I think that goes a really long way for also just like your burnout and how you engage
Yeah.
with students. And like all of these pieces, actually, I really believe this. I know it sounds crazy, but but unconditional positive regard changed my and it might have saved my teaching career, honestly, because the way that I am able to like not take the behavior personally and be that person that says, well, maybe they were just having a bad day, right? Like it's all of that. I think that just makes it such an incredible approach. I feel like I got a little off on what you were saying.
No, if we could all remove that force field or barrier of taking things personally, I was fortunate of spending all of my career almost in middle school, so you learn pretty quickly not to take things personally, right? Yeah,
Middle school.
that's right.
All
That's where
right,
it's at.
you two, I gotta say, uh, to both of you, I did a short stint in student teaching in middle school and said it takes a very special human being to choose this. And so to the 2 and 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds, I ran.
But
Oh
can
no, you gotta.
that I think there's something so at Utopia posts, they constantly post the statistic, which blows my mind every time, but only 1 in 3 friendships are statistically survive 6th grade that started like that are like historic friendships. And I think that makes sense for a lot of reasons. Like in most of the US, 6th grade is like the middle school year, right? And the hormones and all of that. But I think I've taught 4th through 12th. I've loved every grade for different reasons. But I think because like knowing that 6th grade is such a hard year for kids and middle school is such a wild time that like, I don't know. My sister's always like, you couldn't pay me to go back to middle school. And I'm like, well, someone pays me to go to middle school every
Every
day.
day, every day. I think it's my love of nature documentaries. That's why I love middle school. It's just, just watching them navigate the hallways in the cafeteria. All right, let's refocus here, Will.
Sorry,
All right,
it's
so
me.
no, it's me too. That's why we're in middle school together, and Cara's over there, using very precise, kind language with the 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. So, Nicole, you're confronted with a room full of skeptics. What
Yeah.
is the first argument that you're going to make to try to bring them onto your team?
Yeah. So I think the biggest assumption that skeptics make is that unconditional positive regard means just no accountability and no consequences. I think they worry that it condones bad behavior. And what I'd say to them is what Alex Manette says in her book, which is it doesn't condone, negate, or ignore misbehavior. What it does is it creates the conditions for the relationship to continue after that behavior occurs. Because like
That's
Cara
right.
said, we know it's going to occur, right? There is no student who doesn't struggle even the tiniest bit throughout the school year, neurodiverse or otherwise. So what Alex Manette says is we really can't actually hold kids accountable if we don't first have a relationship with them. Think about the random person on the subway that calls you out for being a bad parent or you're on your phone or something and you're like, who are you? Like you're not, it's such a classic example of humanity at its core and why relationships are so important in teaching. And I think that helping them understand that we can hold people accountable and still love them. We can hold people accountable and still care for them. She says in the book, I think it's a direct quote, that trustworthiness doesn't equal dignity, right? And we can recognize that a kid might not be trustworthy in their word at this moment, but that doesn't mean they're not worthy of love and respect and being valued. And so I think I would start with that. And then I would also just remind them that like UPR is not a behavior management system. It's not the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just providing a framework for building relationships with your students and modeling how they should engage in a relationship, right? Unconditional positive regard models forgiveness and it models resilience because when our kids are willing to or they know that they'll be forgiven, they're more likely to own up to a mistake that they made. If they think that they're going to get in trouble, that you're not going to forgive them, that you're not going to love them anymore, they're more likely to lie and avoid, right? We're modeling for them the behaviors that we want to see in them. And I think also really importantly is that accountability and boundaries are a really crucial part of healthy relationships. And unconditional positive regard isn't saying don't have those things. In fact, what we're trying to do is model healthy relationships. So we are going to include accountability. We are going to include consequences. We're just going to also be kind about it and be respectful about it and be supportive after the fact. Like it's,
And be safe and create a safe space for all of that to occur.
Exactly. It's
Incredible.
emotional safety, not like a, free for all.
I love it. So the hardest question that I have for you today,
Okay.
and I just got to tell you, I'm super excited after having conversations with Cara and now this conversation with you. Just to be involved with you guys in Baltimore is going to be really fun. So the hardest question that I have for you is the title of your presentation right now is Trauma-Informed Teaching for All, Unconditional Positive Regard.
Mhm.
If you had to rephrase it using none of those words, what would your new title be?
Easy. Reclaiming the joy of teaching.
Talk about that.
I think that unconditional positive regard has reignited the joy in teaching for me, because when you aren't taking things so personally, when it doesn't feel so like heavy and and I think, Alex Manette talks a lot too about like the saviorism in education. And I think a lot of educators can really own that. And like, she talks a lot about like, we can't be the one person. Like we have to let go of that mantra that we are the one person that's going to change a kid's life. Instead, what she thinks and what I agree with is that we are one of many people who work together to move the ball forward for a child. And when you shift yourself out of the center and put the kid back in the center of they are in control of their life and these are the people who are going to help them, and we're all on the same team, like that changes the dynamic and it doesn't feel so heavy. Not that there aren't days where I leave teaching and I'm like, wow, I really need to go to bed now and it's 3:00 and I can't put my children to bed. I'm all done. It's not that, the burden, it's just that the burden is a little bit lighter and you can really just enjoy your students. And I think with unconditional positive regard, it's given me the framework to build really deep connections with my students. So like I think lean into joy more in my classroom. I think, if I'm looking at a lesson or like we've done something for like 4 or 5 straight days and they've been so on it, I'm like, you know what? We deserve some games. Like we deserve some
Let's
play.
play.
That it
Yeah.
has really ignited that just like we want to enjoy each other's company because we all really like each other, so it's created a classroom environment that's so joyful, and I think
I know.
that's what I want to share with other people is that like it can be joyful again. If it was before and it's not now, it can be again, and if it has
It
never
should
been,
be.
it's not supposed to be like that.
It should be joyful, right? I kind of joke with people, but tell people the truth. Education is the easiest job in the world. All you have to do is care about people. Now, how you interpret caring about people and providing all of these deep safety things is up to you. But Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. What you're going to bring to CEC in Baltimore, I hope that a lot of people get ready to hear it, and I hope that a lot of people come ready to talk about it because it's really important.
Yeah.
Anytime that I can hear not only joy but curiosity, and also the side effect of bringing our families to the table in a expanded capacity, makes me really excited.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a joy.
Thanks, Nicole. I can't wait to get to know you even better in Baltimore.
So
And
soon.
it's going to
I
be so
know.
soon. And you know what always happens for me after these kind of mini-sodes is I find myself for the next 3 days going, oh, I wish I'd asked her this. And I wish I asked her this. So get ready because I'll have questions for you in Baltimore.
Well, please do. And if anyone else has questions, you can find me. I am very happy to answer questions. I'm obviously very passionate about it. So let's talk.
Of course. And we'll put all the contact information that we can in the show notes as well. So, but Nicole, thank you so much. Keep on doing the good work. And Cara, thank you so much for your help this afternoon as well. This is going to be really fun. Thank you, guys.
Thank you both so much. See you soon.
All right.
Ooh, that's not what I meant to do. That.